If you are struggling with finding the right talent and feel overwhelmed by the hiring process, you are not alone. Many Amazon sellers find themselves stuck, unable to scale because they can't seem to find the right people to join their team. So they end up doing pretty much everything themselves and getting spread too thin. It's tough finding people who truly fit your business and then investing the time to train them properly. But here's the thing. Building a team is the key to unlocking significant growth and efficiency in your business. Imagine having a team that runs smoothly, allowing you to step back and focus on scaling your business. In this video, I'm going to break down our process for hiring. Whether you are hiring your first employee or optimizing your existing approach, this blueprint will provide a clear step-by-step guide. We'll cover everything from defining roles and accountability to building hiring funnels and filtering candidates. By the end of this video, you'll know how to systematically and effectively hire the right team members at affordable rates to help you scale your Amazon business. Let's dive in. If you are new, welcome. My name is Michael. We scaled and sold an 8-figure FBA brand, and this is where I show you everything I've learned about business. Today we are going to talk about hiring. Sure, it's not the most exciting topic, but I believe that it is one of the essential skill sets every entrepreneur should have to learn how to bring talent on board. So today's objective is to show you how to systematically and effectively hire the right team members at affordable rates to help you scale your Amazon business. So let's begin with some basics. First of all, we need to understand the difference between delegating and outsourcing. And sure, it may sound as a common sense, right? But I see people very often confusing these two. So delegating is assigning tasks and responsibilities to internal employees, to our own team. This means that all of the processes and workflows are created and managed internally. But when we are outsourcing, we are paying an external organization, right? They have their own employees, they have their own processes. A good example might be your PPC optimization, right? We are paying for the expertise, but we also have to keep in mind that we are paying their employees, we are paying their margins as well. The main difference is our level of control. Of course, while we are delegating, the processes are created internally, therefore we can really define what the processes are, and we have way more control than when we outsource. But that doesn't necessarily mean that outsourcing is bad, right? Of course, there are some areas of the business we want to outsource rather than manage internally. So to really help you navigate this, you should always ask yourself if it's a core process, right? Is this how your business creates value? If so, you should maintain a high level of control. Therefore, you should rather delegate than outsource. If you also have an existing process or the expertise to develop a process, right? Because in some cases, maybe you do not have the expertise. Maybe you do not understand Amazon PPC well enough to actually develop the process. So you may decide to outsource it. And the last question to ask here is whether it's advantageous to store know-how, right? For example, product development, it's definitely worthwhile to store know-how because we are building our knowledge base about our customers, right? So these are the essential questions we should be asking when we are deciding whether we should delegate or outsource. But of course, in this video, we are talking about building our own team, so we are going to talk mainly about delegating. Now, the second part is to understand what type of hire we are looking for. And I divide these into two categories, right? We have delegation hires, where we literally just want to hand over something we are already doing, right? You want to just free up your time. You want someone else to do the exact same thing you are doing, right? Maybe you are managing your shipments, your whole supply chain on your own, and you want someone else to do it for you. This would be a delegation hire, right? And in terms of skill sets, we are just looking for someone who basically has the same skill set in that area, right? You know how to do it, but you choose not to so you can focus on higher level activities. On the other hand, we have an expertise hire. This is where we hire someone who has a skill set we do not, right? Maybe we decide to bring on board a marketing expert or branding, right? We may not have the skill set. We maybe understand the basics, which I highly recommend to still have some understanding of that area before you bring someone on board so you can actually manage them. But we are looking for the expertise, right? We are not hiring to save ourselves some time. We are hiring this separate expertise. And lastly, we need to clarify competence levels. This really helps us to accurately define our requirements, right? We are going to talk about defining the role, defining the position, and understanding the competence levels is one of the most important steps, right? So we actually know who we are looking for. Also, the competence levels, these categories would also allow us to quickly categorize and filter the candidates, whether they are a good fit, because we will understand which of these 3 levels they are on, right? So level 1 is the follower. The follower really just follows a predefined procedures. So we need to train them to follow our procedure and show them the steps, right? They do not have any contextual knowledge. They won't be making any decisions. They won't be building up the workflows. You just tell them this needs to be done. Step 1, step 5, step 10, they will follow the steps and they will hand over the results, right? This may be your typical general VA. Of course, followers, they have their place in the business, but we should really understand what we can expect from them. And of course, this is the cheapest labor, right? We can get these general VAs for $4, $5 per hour. But the essential step here is to understand what we need to do in order to get good results. We need a procedure in place, and we should not expect anything outside of that. The second level is the specialist. Specialists can follow a process, right? They already have some experience, so they have the contextual knowledge. So when we bring them on board, and we have some existing process in place, we have some tools in place, they can hit the ground running, right? Maybe it's a supply manager and they had experience with supply chain, so they know who a freight forwarder is, they know how to actually manage the supply chain, right? So you just plug them in to your process. You don't really have to train them that much. You just need to guide them and lead them, right? They can already make some decisions and they are usually more resourceful, right? Since they have the understanding, they already have their resources to look into if they get stuck, for example. And this is a little bit more expensive. Right now we are looking at $10 to $20 per hour. Of course, this really depends on the location we are hiring from. If we are hiring from the Philippines or from Eastern Europe, or maybe if we are hiring from the West, right? From the US, from the UK, these pay rates are just averages, right? So don't necessarily take this for a fixed rule. And in order to get results with specialists, we need to clearly define how they fit into our business and then transfer the accountability. We want them to own the process, right? Our supply chain manager should really own the outcomes, right? Because that's how we transfer the accountability and that's how we actually get our time back. And lastly, we have the expert, right? The expert develops their own processes. They have so much experience that they tell us what needs to be done, right? And here, really, the idea is that the expert will help us figure out what needs to be done and how. And our goal is to really define the objective, what we are trying to do. Let's say we want to explore external traffic. We have no experience whatsoever with Facebook ads, Instagram ads, TikTok ads, whatever. So we bring on board an expert. And this is where these two really overlap, right? We talk about delegation and outsourcing. So we often outsource to an expert, right? We may hire a consultant to help us develop the process, understand what needs to be done, and then hire a specialist to actually do the work once we understand what needs to be done. And really, here the rates can go all the way up to hundreds and hundreds of dollars per hour. A little disclaimer here that once you start hiring, you will see that a lot of people, most actually, will call themselves experts. But they are not experts in the sense of these competence levels, right? Everyone likes to call themselves an expert, but really the expert needs to know everything, the topic through and through, which is often not the case. Now, when it comes to competence levels, I see these mistakes quite often, right? I see people trying to turn followers into specialists. Some people are amazing followers, right? They follow the steps to the T, then they provide reports, they do everything you want them to do, but pushing them into the specialist role, forcing them to make decisions, forcing them to be more resourceful, is often not working, right? These people like to follow the steps. And if you don't define the steps, they will get lost. They will be stressed out, right? So often, if you have a good follower in your business, you have your general VA, let them be a general VA. Doesn't mean you cannot promote them, but as a general rule, you should really keep in mind that it's very hard to turn a follower into a specialist. And the second mistake when it comes to competence levels is to really trying to delegate everything to a single employee, right? Maybe you hire your first employee, you're happy that they are helping you with one thing, so you try to delegate another thing and then another, and you are basically trying to turn them into an entrepreneur, right? You are the entrepreneur, you know a little bit of everything, but don't expect that from your team. Now, we will talk about hiring guidelines, right? This is really something, how to set our mindset before we begin hiring, right? Really understand, it's not necessarily about the process, but about the approach we are going to take, right? It's important to have the right attitude. So let's talk about the hiring guidelines. One of the most important ones, I believe, is to plan slowly, hire fast, and fire faster. What it means is that in the beginning, we spend a lot of time actually defining the role, what we want, what is the objective, what we want to get out of this. We build out the hiring funnel. We really take our time. And then once we start looking at the candidates and we identify a good candidate, we try to bring them on board quickly, right? This might be a good fit, bring them on quickly, but also fire faster. If they are not a good fit, we want to get rid of them as quickly as possible, right? So we can then repeat the process. Plan slowly, hire fast, fire faster. The next guideline is trying to make it a good fit, right? When we are hiring, we often think what we want to get out of it. But we also have to think about what we offer. And really the person who comes on board should be excited to work with us, right? We need to understand their desires, their motivations, and their goals as if we were selling to a customer, right? Because when you are selling a product, you want the customer to be happy. You just don't want to sell the product and make some money. So this is the same scenario. We want the employee to be happy. We want them to stay for the long run, right? So we need to make it a good fit for both sides, which is very important to understand what they actually want to get out of this. And I see people making this mistake very often. They just define what they want to get, but they don't think about the employee. Actually think what you can offer, right? If you know what you can offer, then you can see which of the candidates might be a good fit. Because maybe they look exactly for what you can offer. Maybe it's remote work, maybe some mentoring, maybe it's a share in the company, right? Once you understand what you can offer, it's easier to make it a good fit and have a really good long-term partnership. The next guideline is that we are looking for a unique skill set. And I mentioned this before. Don't try to make your employee be an entrepreneur, to understand a little bit of everything, right? Look at it this way. Maybe they are building their career. Maybe they just want to work in supply. So don't force them to develop new products, right? Don't force them to optimize your PPC campaigns. Find the person who is really good at that one thing, right? They can take a huge part of the business. They can be accountable for it. Let's say the supply manager, they can do a lot of stuff, but always think about the skill set they already have. Which leads me to the next guideline. Of course, this may not apply to you and your situation, but the way I see it, I always want to hire based on their current skill set, not just future potential. I see people saying this quite often. They have this person and they just see there could be just so much, right? This person one day could help me do so much, but today I'm spending a lot of time training them. I'm spending a lot of time coaching them. It is fine if you want to have an apprentice on your team, but if you want to scale quickly, if you want to get the leverage in the business you need, if you want to take the stuff off your plate and transfer the accountability to them, you need to hire based on their current skill set. And lastly, we want to focus on leverage and not cost, right? A lot of people look at hiring as really trying to minimize the overhead cost. But really, we should focus on the upside. How much time this person is going to save me? How much money is this person going to generate for the business? Because if we do this, we realize that going from $5 to $10 per hour, it is worthwhile to really keep the person who is good for the job, right? And of course, if we set the hire pay rate, it will be easier to attract great candidates, right? Keep that in mind. Keep in mind why we are hiring, right? We want leverage. We don't want to just minimize the costs. Now we can talk about the hiring process. The hiring process I'm going to talk about is designed to hire remote workers, but it's going to work 100% even for in-house employees, right? Maybe you have your own office. This process is exactly the same. So the thought process behind hiring, right? We may ask, who do I want to hire? But actually, we are asking, what do I want to delegate, right? We need to reframe the question a bit, which then helps us to actually understand who we should look for. Because we are delegating on a process level. We are not just thinking about a single task here and there, right? We want to look at a specific part of the business on a high level that we want to transfer the accountability for, right? So we really have to identify the process we can delegate next to gain the most leverage. And we should often look for the cheapest and easiest way to get our time back, especially if you are running your business on your own. We define the categories, right? The delegation hire and the expertise hire. But if we are talking about the delegation hire, the objective is simple: get our time back, right? It is very straightforward, and it's important to understand this, because if we are looking for a delegation hire, this will be the main metric we are going to evaluate. If I'm hiring a supply manager, I better make sure that I'm actually spending less time in supply than before if I bring this person on board. But of course, in order to identify the process we want to delegate, we need to identify it as a bottleneck, right? So this is my approach to identifying labor bottlenecks in the business. First of all, understand our time allocation. I personally like to track my time. I use Toggle to really understand where my time goes. Because if I know where my time goes, I can look at, let's say, the past 30 days of data, and I will see something like this. 32% of my time goes into supply, right? And out of that, 67% of my time in supply goes into shipments. It just means that I'm spending quite a lot of time on low-level activities, which also means that there is a huge opportunity because I'm not doing the things that could grow my business, because managing shipments is not going to grow my business. Which leads me to the second criteria, right? We want to understand what grows and what maintains the business. Because work that grows the business is often creative and requires thinking outside the box, which means that it's generally harder to delegate and more expensive. So first of all, we need to focus on delegating the tasks that just maintain the business, right? Routines and everything that maintains the business, we do repeatedly, right? So it's easier to define the steps. It's easier to design the process, right? So it's generally easier to delegate it. Therefore, it's cheaper as well. So for example, we often delegate supply first or before we delegate product development, because it's easier to find someone who will manage our POs and shipments than it is to find someone who will develop new products for us. And lastly, we need to understand effort and impact. In terms of effort, I mean time and mental capacity, right? Because it's not just about time. It's the mental capacity as well. The time I actually spend thinking, that occupies my mind thinking about the thing. And low impact on business performance. So really here we should apply the 80-20 rule. Because these things still need to be done, right? Often on a regular basis, we are talking about monitoring tasks and tracking, right? Looking at our competition and monitoring our shipments. It really doesn't require complex decision making, but it requires quite a lot of time regularly, right? We need to keep thinking, what about this shipment, right? What about this product, right? We need to monitor and track. It really takes a lot of our mental capacity. So these I would identify as high effort, low impact on the business performance. So in conclusion, we are looking for a process or for area of the business that requires a lot of our time and attention. It's a process that maintains the business, and it's high effort, low impact, right? And the common mistake here, I really see this every single time I talk to, pretty much every single time I talk to a seller, they really miss the root cause of their labor bottleneck. They tell me, I haven't launched a product in 6 months. This means that I don't spend enough time in product development, which of course the common sense is to hire someone who's going to help me with product development. But we said that hiring someone for product development can be quite expensive, right? So let's actually figure out the root cause. Why you are not spending enough time in product development? You spend a lot of time in supply. Spend a lot of time managing your shipments, tweaking your PPC campaigns. So can we actually bring someone on board to free up your time in that area of the business, which will be cheaper than hiring someone for the product development? And then you can reallocate your time into product development, right? So this is really important to understand that, because sellers would hire someone to help them with product development and they would stay managing their shipments, right? It really doesn't make sense if we look at it this way, but it's a very, very common mistake. So keep in mind, you need to find the root cause of the labor bottleneck and then find the easiest and cheapest way to remove it. Now, we can proceed and look at the actual position, right? We need to define the position, right? Now we identified the process we want to delegate, and now it's time to define the position. So the way I approach this is I look at specific tasks and decisions this person is going to be accountable for, right? So first, specific actions. Let's say now we already have our supply manager and we truly need help with product development. So we are start writing tasks we are actually accountable for right now in product development, right? As I work, I write these down, right? So I'm doing keyword research, creating a title for my product. I need to put it into the listing, populate the listings. I need to create photo briefs so I can communicate with photographer and graphic designer and create the PPC campaigns. And you start coming up with a lot of ideas, right? Perfect. As many ideas as possible within that specific process. And if you are not sure, you can also ask AI to help you, right? Hey, I have a product development, I have an Amazon business, and I'm looking what other tasks could I potentially delegate in this particular process, right? Ask AI, right? Use AI to help you with this, and it will generate a list and it will be like, oh, okay, I actually forgot to include this, right? So you will have a long list of tasks and decisions. And don't worry, we will then use this to actually help us define the position. Now, the second step, define the requirements, right? First of all, which position level is this? We talked about this. Is it a follower, specialist, expert? So you can ask yourself a simple question. Do I have a super clear procedure, step by step, already defined? I just need to do this repeatedly, take it out of my plate and be done with it. Follower will be enough. But if I have a clear idea of the result, I need them to be resourceful, I need them to study on their own, right? I should probably hire a specialist. And if I don't really know what I'm doing, I just know, hey, I need to try Facebook ads, I should probably look for an expert, right? So we will choose one of these position levels. I also like to define general requirements. These are often as important as the hard skills, right? Being analytical, problem solving, process-driven mind, how available they are, their responsibility and ownership of their results. And we will really, I will actually share a list of these general requirements I often like to look for, but these are extremely important and we will be evaluating these during the last step, right? When we are going to filter all of the candidates. I also like to set the critical requirement, what I call the filter, right? The most important requirement. If you don't have this, you cannot work for us, right? This is the one thing, the most important requirement. And let's say if we are looking for a brand manager to help us do all of these things, keyword research, they need to have experience with Amazon business. There is no way around it, right? I'm looking for a specialist, contextual knowledge about Amazon. You need to have previous experience with Amazon business, let's say at least 2 years. That's the filter. If you don't have this, if you don't pass this filter, nothing else matters. Good? Now, employment, right? We are still in the planning phase, defining the role. How many hours are required? Well, if we did the exercise I told you about, the time allocation, we know how many hours we are actually looking at, right? Initially, I recommend to increase it by like 50%. If I say I'm spending 15 hours, 10 hours in supply, inventory management, and I want to hire a supply manager, I look at the hours I'm spending there right now and increase it by 50% to have a rough idea, right? So is it full-time? Is it part-time? Are there fixed hours? Do I want them to be available every day for a specific period? Or is it flexible? Do whenever you can, right? Work whenever you want. What's the pay rate? We should have an idea what we can afford and really do not try to just go as the lowest possible pay rate, right? Look, what are your options? Like, how high can I actually go here to have some idea? Also, what are the benefits we can provide? As I said, we want to then understand what the person is looking for. So really understand the benefits we can provide. What do we actually offer other than the money, right? We can mentor them, right? We can, maybe the brand manager deserves a profit share. Perfect, right? So really define what are the benefits, what I'm going to offer to attract the best candidate possible. Now, position in the company, we should be clear, especially if we have a larger team, then who manages this role. In the beginning, it will be all you, perfect, and who will they interact with? Not just within the team, but also outside the external network, right? The photographers, the graphic designers, the PPC agency, write it all down here. And the last step when defining the position, I would even dare to say the most important one, and I see people really skipping this step, which is crazy to me. It's not defining what success looks like and what failure looks like. Really, this will help us clarify why we are hiring. It will help us clarify our expectations without getting attached to any of the candidates or the hiring process. This will help us define what the success looks like, what failure looks like, so we can then evaluate the new employee. So did we actually achieve this? But we are defining this before we bring the person on board, right? So let's say for the supply manager, I can define success like this. Like, you can read it, pause the video, supply chain is running smoothly according to our processes. Failure, manager has to step in, delays caused by miscommunication, losing track of milestones. I really define what a failure would look like in this role and what the best case scenario is. And then I also like to define what is the ultimate objective of this hire. We talked about this. Delegation hire, save my time. So how many hours per week I actually want to save by this hire? 10 hours of my time every week. I'm going to use this to evaluate the employee, let's say after 2 months, whether I achieved this or not, right? And if I haven't achieved this, why? And maybe it was a failure, right? Maybe I have not achieved this, so I need to reconsider. Did this candidate actually help me achieve my objective? Very, very important. So now we have the role defined, and how do we get to the point where we actually have the employee up and running, accountable for the process we wish to delegate? Hiring funnels. Right? We are going to talk about step by step how to build out a hiring funnel for the specific role we just defined, right? And I like to look at hiring funnels similar to product development, right? At the top, you have plenty of ideas. Then you go through verification steps, and most of the ideas are not good enough. Maybe it's the profitability, maybe it's the competition in the marketplace, right? So you go through multiple stages and you remove some of these ideas that are not a good fit. But the way I like to think about it when hiring or even product development, it's a shot on goal approach. The more shots we take, the more times we will actually score, right? So we want to maximize the number of candidates, which will increase our chances of finding a good one. But we also want to minimize effort because we don't want to interview 200, 300 candidates. That would be crazy, right? So our goal, maximize the number of candidates and minimize the effort we have to put in order to filter them out. And that's why we build the hiring funnel. It's important to say that there is no process that would guarantee a 100% success rate. As I said, it's the same as with products. Even if you have the best product development process in the world, no chance you will have 100% success rate. We're just increasing our chances by doing things right. But what's also important to keep in mind that if we miss, we just repeat the whole process, right? And that's easy once you have the funnel in place. Let's say you build out the funnel, you define the position, you do all of this work we talk about, and then unfortunately, the candidate you bring on board is not a good fit, or they decide to quit, whatever. You repeat the process. The funnel is still there, right? Perfect. So at the top, we have attracting as many candidates, as many relevant candidates as possible, filtering them out efficiently until we find the one who is a good fit. So step one of the hiring funnel is the job ad. Here, think about it as your product listing. You want to sell the opportunity. We know what we want, and we also need to understand what we offer, right? Think about it as an offer. Your listing, you are selling the opportunity. Because if you don't sell, right, it will be hard to attract someone who might be a good fit for your business. And I also like to think about job ads the same way, like from the employee's perspective. Like, would I be interested in this? It is exciting. Like, or am I just saying like, hey, work, and this is your salary? That's what most people do, and then they don't attract the good candidates. They attract candidates who only, let's say, want to make money. But we also, as I said, we want to look at viable candidates. We don't want to attract just anyone, right? Let's say you post a job ad, hey, I have some work for you, I offer $10,000 per month. You would probably attract a lot of candidates, but how many of them are actually relevant? How many of them are actually viable? So we really want to make sure that we discourage everyone else who is not a good fit, which means that the job ad should be as detailed as possible, right? First of all, we don't want to spend our time answering questions, right? What about this? What about that? It needs to be very, very clear what it's about. And people who are not really interested, like maybe like the salary is good, it's remote, it's interesting, but if they are not really interesting and it's not really resonating with them, they won't bother, which is perfect because we want to discourage these people anyway. Now, in terms of the job ad structure, nowadays, AI can help you write the perfect job ad quite easily. But in terms of the structure, think about it like this. At the beginning, that's your sales pitch. That's your hook, right? That would be your main product image, right? Your title, right? What really needs to catch the eye, right? A lot of these hiring platforms, you have some headline. That's your hook. That's your sales pitch. How are you going to bring the potential candidate into door? Then define the scope of employment, right? The working hours, the long term, right? Think about it this way. If you are looking for a job, or maybe in the past you were an employee, what people often do is they read the beginning and then they scroll down to actually find what is the salary, right? What are the hours? Is it remote or do I have to commute, right? They usually skip this stuff. So let's put it in the beginning, right? Let's save them the time to actually see like, hey, I might be interested. This is a good fit for me. It's remote. It's 15 hours per week. It's a long term, whatever. Then we want to talk about the responsibilities, right? What are the bonus skills? As I said, as detailed as possible. Our supply chain manager, of course, we want them to have experience with supply, but also learning with spreadsheets, extremely important. Or maybe we are using some specific software. Put it down there, right? Show them, hey, we are using this particular software. If you have this experience, that's a big bonus. So we don't have to teach you that. Also, where would they fit? What's their position in the team, the interactions? Hey, maybe you are working directly with the founder. That's exciting, right? I'm a 7-figure business owner and you will be working directly with me. It's very exciting for people who have the ambition maybe to one day have their own business, right? Very important. Salary and benefits, and then talk about your business. Who are you? What are you about? What are your goals? What's your vision for the business? And then clear call to action. What you want them to do, right? Specific action. Do this now. So the next step, we will talk about it in a minute. But what to do with the job ad? Well, we want to advertise it. First of all, think about your network. People often skip this step, right? They immediately go to hiring platforms and they skip the step that they actually can hire from their own network. You're on Facebook, you're on LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever. Just advertise it. And you will be surprised. Maybe some people from your past will be extremely interested in this, having a remote work. Maybe they want to travel the world, be digital nomads, and this is the perfect opportunity for them. Post it on your social media for free. Then in terms of hiring platforms, at the end of this video, I will share a link so you can take a look at all of this in more detail. But I like to look at Upwork, onlinejobs.ph, or Reddit, right? FreeUp. There are many of these platforms. But I want you to keep in mind what matters more is how we hire rather than where we hire, right? If we build this hiring funnel, I usually advertise it on multiple platforms, right? To get as many candidates as possible into the funnel. Here's a little bonus tip. In the call to action, right, within the job ad, we want to mention to begin their application with a specific phrase. So we actually make sure that they read it, right? Because a lot of people, they just read job ads and they apply as many as possible because they are really trying to think that if I apply to 20, 30, 40 different jobs, I will eventually get one, right? We want to filter out these people, as I said. We want to discourage people who are just looking for a job and they are not really excited about this opportunity. So you can ask something like, hey, begin your application with saying, let's do this, or I love Amazon, or something like that, something they wouldn't normally say in the application. Now, step 2, questionnaire. We want to quickly filter a large number of candidates. Here we are going to use Google form or a type form so we can actually filter it out quickly, export it into spreadsheet and filter it out. So the structure of the questionnaire, we are going to look at personal information, process requirements, and then their expectations. So we have these 3 parts, right? The personal information, really asking the info you need, the name, email, and also their past experience if relevant, right? If we are looking for someone existing experience, we want to ask, good question, why should we choose you, right? You will see some people really go into detail, others not so much, right? Some people literally will say, because I'm good, like, okay, whatever, but really ask questions like this. And once you get these, the questionnaire responses, you will see that there will be a huge difference. And also, what is your experience with that specific, right? What is your experience with Amazon? You are applying to be a brand manager. Tell me about your experience. And some people, again, will go into detail and say relevant things, while others not so much. This will help you filter out a lot of candidates quite easily. Now, process requirements. Of course, this really are specific questions based on the processes they are going to be involved in, based on the processes we are delegating, right? And what I like to do is to take the list of tasks we defined before and try to ask questions that cannot be just easily answered with AI. But then again, it's not necessarily a problem, right? It shows that they are resourceful and that they can actually use the AI. It's not necessarily bad that someone is using AI. If they just copy paste it, of course it's bad, but you can tell. But if they found the information somewhere, it means that they are resourceful, right? Because I was talking to a seller and he told me like, hey, he clearly found this video on YouTube and just wrote down the points from the YouTube video to answer the question. But what's bad about that, right? The person is resourceful, he has a question, he has a task, and he finds the answer, right? So in the future, if he works for you and there is something you don't understand, he will be resourceful, go to YouTube, find the answer, and do what's necessary, right? So it's not necessarily bad that people find the answer online, but it shouldn't be as easy as that for every question, right? So here we are looking at 6 to 8 questions, right? In total, that should be enough. And lastly, talk about their expectations, right? We really should make sure, are they looking for a long-term engagement, full-time work? What is the pay rate they are interested in? Once again, this will then help us actually find the candidate who might be a good fit. A bonus tip here, since we have multiple questions, it's defined once again the one as the filter. They do not know which one it is. Let's say question number 7, very important, right, for us, very specific for that role. We set it as a filter, so we don't have to review the answers of all candidates, all answers from all candidates. We just look at answers of this one question, the filter, and if they don't get this right, we immediately delete them, and then we review the rest of the applications only of those who answered the filter question correctly. And that should be usually the hardest one, the most important one, right? And of course, they do not know which question is that. Now, step number 3, it's the test, right? I want to stress out that if we are hiring for a lower level job, we don't necessarily need to go through all of these steps, right? The higher the level the role, the more steps we include into hiring funnel, right? The more filtering we want to do, right? If it's like a very simple thing, we don't need to go through all of these steps. So we want to assign a task to evaluate their work. And here I look at it this way. We have either test task, right? Which is something we really use to just evaluate. It should be just 1, 2, 3 hours long and can be paid or unpaid. Since if we have a large number of candidates, of course, we want to prioritize unpaid, but then we don't really want them to do hours and hours of work, right? Maybe it should be able to finish that within 1 or 2 hours. The alternative is to go for a work trial, really hire them for a week, 2, let them do real productive work, maybe hire 4 candidates for the probation period. But I personally don't prefer this, right? I prefer to have the test task so we can quickly filter out the people that are not a good fit. The test task is about an assignment. We want to create a task assignment that's same for every candidate, but we do not tell them the steps, right? What matters to us is to actually that we will see the steps they took and how they are able to talk about them. So for example, we are about to launch a new product, stainless steel ashtray. We send them a photo of the product and then tell them to do a keyword research, find one main keyword and 2 to 3 long tail keywords, create a title for this product, right? This would be for the brand manager. Also, we ask them to analyze and briefly evaluate the niche, about seasonality, competition, demand. We just want to see how they think about the market, right? How they think about Amazon, right? If they say it's a high competition, low competition, right? And the most important thing, share your workflow with us, what you did and why you did that, right? Very important to see how they operate. And also you will see how they present their work. Some people just put it into a Word document. Others will hand in a nicely formatted Excel sheet with all of the resources, all of the links. They will record a Loom video to tell you what they did, how they did it. Very important to actually filter them out based on this, right? It's not just about that they do a good job. Maybe they made a mistake, but if they show you how they did it, you can easily correct it, right? Hey, this step was wrong. Don't use this tool, right? Very, very important. And most people won't do that, like, believe me. Step number 4, the interview. We want to get to know them better, right? Understand their knowledge and also their attitude, get to know them as a person, right? We are going to be interacting with them on a regular basis. We want to make sure that we get along, that they fit the culture of our team. So I prefer open-ended questions. But what's most important is that we want to interview at least 3 candidates, right? I usually prefer 3 to 5. So after 1-2 interviews, you will get some baseline. Someone will stand out. But if you interview 1 or 2, you won't really know. One may be better, but does it mean that he's good? If you interview 4, 5 people, you will see where is the average, where is the baseline, and who's above the average. Very important. And at the interview, we are going to review the general requirements, right? First of all, the existing skills and experience. Since they're at the interview, we'll already know that they have the experience, right? We already know that they have the knowledge. But what we want to understand is, do they take responsibility and ownership of their results, right? Maybe we will discuss the test. We want to know if they can own up to their mistakes, because there will be something they made wrong. So what if we pointed out how they react, how they accept feedback? That's important. We want to see their face, turn on the camera, and I'm going to tell you what you did wrong, and we will see, of course, if they did something wrong, and we will see how they react. And I recommend to have a list of questions, right? So what did you do before? What did you like, didn't like? These open-ended questions, right? What was your most valuable research when learning about Amazon, right? This person, let's say hiring a brand manager, knows about Amazon. So what's your most valuable resource? Maybe it's a YouTube channel, maybe it's a podcast, right? Why they want to work for an online business, right? Very important. Once again, trying to understand what they want to get out of this. Then we will be discussing the test. As I said, let them again talk about the process and steps that are followed, and if there are any errors, and likely there will be some minor errors or maybe some disagreements, what they did and how they did that, really see their reactions, how they accept your feedback. And maybe sometimes they are even willing to push back, which is also great, right? We did this interview with our brand manager and I told him like, hey, I'm not so sure about this step you took. And he was, no, this is how it's done because X, Y, and Z. Perfect, right? You don't want just someone to blindly follow what you tell them. So really the interview, get to know them. A few bonus tips. Prepare your questions beforehand, right? Like here, record the interview. Record it. And then you can use AI to write down notes during the interview as well, right? There are some AIs to help you do that. But if you record the interview, you can then do the transcript of the interview and send it to AI to help you to ask the AI if this person is a good fit, right? So you can tell the AI, act like a hiring HR manager, right? I'm looking for a person, send the role you defined, and now ask, send the transcript. This was the person, this was the interview with the person. Do you think he's a good fit? How would you evaluate them on their ability to take ownership for their results? Their problem solving. Do they have a process-driven mind? Right? I understand you are not an HR manager, but so maybe you can't tell that when you talk to them, but the AI can help you with that a lot. So use it. Step 5, time to make a decision, right? The actual evaluation, choosing one of the candidates. I personally focus on a few things, right? Of course, we want them to have the skills and expertise, but for me, super important, communication speed and accuracy, right? How quickly they reply, how quickly they hand in over the results, right? If you give them 1 week to finish a test task, some people send you the result within 2 hours, while others wait till the deadline, right? Very important. And accuracy of their communication. If they tell you something, do you have to ask what they meant, right? Is it clear? Is it structured, easy to follow, how they communicate? As I said, they are going to present the results of their test task. Do they record a Loom video? Go step by step. Does it make sense? Is it easy to follow how they communicate? Or is it chaotic and you are like, okay, I have 10 more questions because you just can't explain what you did here, right? Communication speed and efficiency. Independent problem solving and common sense, right? Are they resourceful? Can they figure stuff on their own? Because this will tell me if they are going to ask me questions every single day. I don't want that. I want to say, get my time back. I want this person to figure stuff out, right? Important. Honesty. Some people simply cannot own up to their mistakes. And it's perfectly fine if they make a mistake and if they say like, you are right, this was wrong. I will do it your way next time. I will fix this issue. Very important, right? Create a list of candidates. I usually create like overview like this, evaluating experience, attitude, and communication to give them score, right? So let's say even if the experience is slower, but the attitude, right? The attitude also determines how quickly they will gain the experience, right? If they have great attitude and not so much experience, and they communicate very well, I would prefer to hire this person over someone who has a lot of experience, but negative, toxic attitude with poor communication, right? Because this person with less experience, but great attitude, great communication, is going to learn super fast, right? So that's important. And important note, it's possible that none of the candidates will be a good match. And that is fine, right? I understand you went through this. It took a month to gather the candidates, filter them out, talk to them. And now it feels like such a disappointment to say like, none of them are a good fit. Let's get more candidates. Let's repeat it. It's a tough decision, but sometimes it's necessary. It's way better, trust me, it's way better than hiring someone who is not a good fit. You will regret that. And if you have doubts, trust your gut, right? Repeat the hiring process, bring more people in. Now that you have the hiring funnel, it will take 1 or 2 extra weeks to get more candidates in. But if no one is a good fit, don't bother. Now, about expanding, right? What I like to do is to regularly envision what the next stage could look like. I always, in the back of my mind, have the next person I could bring on board to help me gain more leverage, right? What does it look like right now? Maybe it's me solo, maybe I have 2-3 employees, but I need to know what the next step is, right? So I can think how to grow this business in terms of team and removing labor bottlenecks. And I will follow the same thought process, right? What requires a lot of my time and attention? Do I have a process do I still do a process that just maintains the business? High effort, low impact. I personally like to build the team from the bottom, right? Which means that if I have an existing team, I can either promote someone or add a bottom layer. I mean it like this, right? If I promote someone, I'm moving an existing employee up and then replace them at the bottom. So let's say I hired a brand manager to help me monitor competition, all the operations, help manage the product development pipeline. And I decide that they are a great fit. Of course, we promote only if they are a fit for the position to be, let's say, a general manager to manage now the team. I see that they have the potential. So rather than looking for a general manager, I promote this one and then hire a brand manager, which would be, again, I already have the hiring funnel from the past, let's say from 2 years ago, and this person will have an easy time managing this brand manager because he essentially was doing the same job before. So he can onboard them, he can train them, and he can then manage them, right? So I will bring one person up and replace them at the bottom. Or the alternative is adding a bottom layer. Here, we identified our labor bottlenecks, right? Our own bottlenecks in terms of labor. But here, we look at our employees, right? And follow the same process. Let's say I'm noticing that my supply manager is maxed out. He's spending so much time managing our 3PL shipments, right? We are growing dozens and dozens of SKUs, marketplaces. I need them to focus on inventory management, look at seasonality, the higher level stuff. But they are just maxed out doing this low level task, generating labels. So I decide to add a bottom layer to take this low-level task off their plate and hire a supply assistant that will be just managing the 3PL shipments so the supply manager can focus on high-level tasks. Now, important point to mention. It may be scary, right? Especially if you are a sole entrepreneur. How many people do I need to hire? How much money I need for overhead? You don't need 10 employees to start scaling. We got to 8 figures with 2 full-time employees and 2 part-time employees. And on my channel, I have an interview with my good friend Ben, who hired 2 employees, and it completely changed his business, right? Now, at 7 figures, 2 employees. It works that way, right? Just a few hires can really change the way you run your business and help you start scaling. Now, we have a few common mistakes I want you to avoid. First of all, I talk about this, the biggest mistake I see, hiring cheap, right? Maybe a good way to minimize costs, but it's not a good way to grow the business, to maximize profit, right? Focus on leverage. The second very common mistake, lack of clear job descriptions, not really clarifying, taking the time to clarify the role. What do I want, right? I need help. Let me hire someone. You will have a hard time to actually make that work if you don't know what you want them to do. Because if you don't know what you want to delegate, you don't know what are the requirements, and then you will hire the wrong person and you will end up being disappointed. Plan slowly, right? Spend the time to define that. Hiring too quickly. Usually, entrepreneurs decide to hire when it's almost too late, right? You are just overwhelmed, spending too much time. Now you need to hire someone. So you just rush through the process and you don't take the time, right? You just try to fill in the position as quickly as possible. Maybe none of the candidates is good enough, but you are like, I need it now. So you bring them on board, and sooner or later, you need to repeat the process, but now you actually lost all the time trying to make it work with a person who is not a good fit. Poor onboarding, right? These two really go hand in hand. You hire too quickly, I need you to do this as quickly as possible, so you don't take the time to train them and onboard them properly to really then transfer the accountability, right? We abdicate in a way that we just throw it on them, they feel frustrated, they make mistakes, they will leave or we will fire them. Take your time to actually train them, hand over the responsibilities one by one until the trust is established, and then we are good to go. Ignoring red flags. This is really, I see that also very often. I did that myself. Sometimes it's not a good fit, but we get emotionally invested, as in our products, right? You launch a product, spend so much time trying to make it work. You believe the potential is there, but it's not working. Just don't ignore the red flags, right? Don't overlook the warning signs. Now, I will share with you all of the templates, my full hiring process, all of the guidelines, the hiring funnels, so you can just go step by step. Basically what I showed you here, it's a template, it's for free. There will be a link in the description below this video. And I will also link this document. There were a lot of notes that you will probably want to review. So I will put that in the resources as well. But what's important now is that building the team and really hiring someone is just one of the steps, right? I call this the designing cycle, working on your business, right? Finding the talent is actually one of the steps. But what we also need to do is to build up the structure, the processes, build up the machine where we will then plug them in, right? Because none of these things really work without the previous step, right? We also need to learn how to manage and delegate efficiently. So I will link a video here where I talk about systemization, right? So the next video to watch here on YouTube is about systemization, how to develop processes and how to actually build your team. And I will link it somewhere around here on the screen. So that's pretty much it. And I will see you next week.